Hi there, this is Jan again with Life After 18. Today I want to share some secrets with you that I have picked up over the years for public speaking. How to develop some good presentation skills so that you can be a good, confident public speaker. Now, the reason this all came about is years ago, I worked for a company doing customer support, but what I used to see all the time was all the other trainers and all the other salespeople coming back into the office with their little travel bags and all their presentation materials. And they would sit down and talk about, oh my God, there was such a cute little restaurant in New York, and it's down on, Madison Avenue or whatever. And they had like the best frozen chocolate drink or whatever it was, or, the best baguettes down in New Orleans at this cute little restaurant. Anyway, and they would talk about these things. They would talk about all the things that they've seen, the food they experienced, the places they've been, the people they've met. And I would be so jealous. I would be just so jealous. It would make me crazy. And I thought, I want that job. I want a job where the company is going to pay me to travel and have all these really cool experiences. How do I do it? Well, crap, I'm scared to death to talk. And honestly, I'm an introvert. And I'll tell you what, being an introvert isn't just being shy. It's being scared to death to walk into a room of a bunch of strangers and feel, like you want to look for the next exit. All right. That's what that means. And you just want to hide. So in public speaking, I know a lot of people, even extroverts, are afraid of public speaking. Although they're not afraid to be in a room of people, they love being the center of attention. As an introvert, I don't like being the center of attention either. So to walk into a classroom and everybody's looking at me, it's like, oh God, this is scary. And then I have to talk and make sense. Holy crap, that's scary. Well, what I did is I finally decided there's got to be a way for me to do this. There's got to be a way for me to overcome this fear. So what I did is I took a speech class at a junior college. And through that semester, I finally figured out how everybody does it, introverts and extroverts. So that's what I'd like to share with you in this particular video. I hope you're ready. And by the way, I do have notes right here, just so you know. A lot of people don't memorize this stuff. So I'm going to start off with tip number 1, or secret number 1, do your homework. That means learn all you can on that particular subject. And I'll tell you what, learning more is better than not enough. Now, I always taught computer software, so I learned everything I could about that particular software package. If it was Excel, I not only learned Excel, I learned Word, I learned PowerPoint, I learned about Microsoft Windows and everything that went into making Excel work, because I knew that there was going to be one person in the class who would ask me some off-the-wall question about that. Actually, I didn't know that right away. I didn't learn that little thing until I got nailed in a class once on one of those questions. And while it's okay to say I don't know, I had a lot of I don't knows that day. So learn all you can about the subject, all the peripheral information about that subject as well. Like I said, it's better to know too much than not enough. Which brings me to tip number 2, anticipate questions. Now, if you're new to a subject that you're teaching or talking about or presenting on, you might have a harder time anticipating questions. So what you might want to do is talk to a friend or a coworker or whatever it is, or whoever it is, about this particular subject and kind of pick their brain. Find out the questions that they would ask, the things that they might want to know in this particular class or this presentation, okay? And when you get an idea of what those questions might be, work that information into your presentation. Then it sounds like, hey, you're pretty credible. You thought of that. Your brain works the same way mine does. That's what these students and these participants are going to be thinking about you. So yeah, adding to your credibility. That's a good thing when you anticipate questions and you've done your homework. Now, the next thing, tip number 3, this is very, very critical to anybody who's going to do a lecture or teach a class. It's called preparing your introduction. And you might think, oh, well, that's easy. I'll just get in and say hey and jump right in. No, you won't. That first minute, you have to know that you're going to walk in, that you're going to probably say your name, but will you talk about your background, your experience on this particular subject? Do you want to go over some housekeeping issues? I mean, a lot of my classes, when I first became a corporate trainer, they were a week long. I was in the same group of people, or in the same city, I should say. I was with the same group of people for 4.5 days. So I had to do housekeeping stuff too as part of my introduction. And that means the class runs from this time to this time. This is where I'm going to take a lunch break. This is where we're going to take other breaks. That's where the bathrooms are. That's where the kitchen is. And no, you can't have food and drink around your computer keyboard. You can tell I did this for a really long time, right? I had that introduction down pat. And the reason you want to do this is because it's something you memorize. It doesn't, what would you say? It doesn't stress you out, but it takes some pressure off of you from just being in front of these people. And who knows, it might get some two-way conversation going right away as well. So you kind of feel more comfortable with the people in the room. So in addition to preparing your introduction, what you want to do is tip number 4, include a question for the participants or the people in the room as part of your introduction. And what I mean by a question is something you would ask them that everybody has to answer. They don't have to think too hard to come up with an answer. And it takes all the, what would you say, the attention off of you while you're standing in front of this classroom. And all the students then, their attention now is on the person who is speaking. That's how it always works. They're looking at the person talking. So you do your introduction, you ask a question of every individual around the room. So you've got a good, 5 or 10 minutes where they're not looking at you and you can breathe for a second. Kind of like that. Okay, what kind of question? Like I said, keep it simple. You want to ask their name probably. You want to ask them what company they're working for if you're not in a particular company. And then you might want to ask them about what kind of work they do, maybe how they're going to apply this knowledge to their job. And you may even want to ask them, what they hope to get out of this class. Yeah, that's great. It's simple. And again, you do this because you're taking the attention off of you. You're giving yourself time to breathe and not worry so much. And it also gives some two-way conversation going on. So you get an idea of the personalities in the classroom. And, that's always kind of nice, and maybe you make eye contact. You feel like you're making connections with these people. And that's a good thing. So you don't feel like they're, out to get you or something. It really is good for you, though, as a presenter, because it helps you to relax a little bit and then kind of ease into the subject. Now, another way to ease into the subject, besides being prepared, preparing your introduction, anticipating questions, asking your own questions, is to write it all down. And what do I mean by that? That means write down everything you're going to talk about in your presentation. Not many people memorize their presentations right off the get-go. I created this particular presentation probably about 10 years ago, I think. I still haven't memorized it because I don't do this presentation very often. So yeah, I have it all written down. I have my cheat sheet here. You do bullet points, and then under each bullet point, you type in the details of that particular subject, whatever it is. Be sure to put these bullet points, though, in the order in which you're going to use them. You don't want them just scattered all over the page and helter-skelter, because you don't want to be, scrambling, looking at your notes and trying to figure out, okay, what do I do next? No, you put them in the right order. You might even want to number them. And you can even check them off as you're talking. This is a cheat sheet. As you get real comfortable with this topic, whatever it is, you might even just be okay with the bullet points and you don't need to print out the details anymore. You could put them on little 3x5 cards or whatever. Believe me, a lot of trainers do this. A lot of presenters do this. The only place I haven't really seen it done is when I've watched TED Talks. And if you're not sure what that is, go to YouTube and look up TED Talks. It's pretty cool. Very impressive, too. These speakers are very impressive. Anyway, write it all down. And then tip number 6, practice, practice, practice. When you are preparing for a presentation that you've never done before on a subject you probably know a lot about, but you've never actually talked about it before, you need to get comfortable getting these words out of your mouth. And it's like, oh yeah, you know all this stuff, but are you comfortable saying these words? And the only way you're going to get comfortable with that is by saying them over and over again. It helps you to remember them better, but it gives you more of a feeling of confidence when these words sound like they're normal and natural to you. Okay, so practice, practice, practice. And I don't mean just 3 or 4 times. I mean 50 to 100 times until you get very, very comfortable with these things. And that adds to memorizing it too. Also adds to the point where eventually you just need the bullet points on a little 3x5 card because you're comfortable with it, right? So practice, practice, practice. You read this stuff out loud. You say it out loud. You can do it in front of a mirror. With all the technology out here, you can sit here and videotape it, watch it back, criticize yourself, or you can even get together with a group of friends, or if you feel comfortable, talking to your kids, your husband, your wife, your boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever it is. Practice. Get comfortable with it. And the cool thing about the practice too is the people that you're practicing with, if that's how you choose to do it, they might come up with questions for you that you never thought of. Make a note if they do that, right? And that whole part that I said at the beginning, what was that? Step number 2, anticipate questions so that you can work them into your lecture. See, this is a good opportunity for that too. Practice, practice, practice. Okay, step number 7, or tip number 7, I should say. Remember that it is okay to say, I don't know. Now, what you might do is say, I don't know, gee, I never thought of it that way, or I never thought of that. Let me find out and get back to you. That's what you need to do, is tell them that you're going to find out, you're going to look it up, you're going to talk to your resource or your expert, and you're going to find an answer and you're going to get back to them. And by the way, you really need to do that. If you say you're going to get back to somebody with the answer, you need to really do that. But the point here is it's okay to say, I don't know. If you don't know, what is not good is making something up or trying to wing it. Because there's going to be somebody in that group who's going to call you on that and say, yeah, okay, that's not how I remember it working, And then your credibility, crash and burn. That so sucks. So do not lie, do not wing it, do not make up crap on the fly, because it will bite you in the butt every single time. It is always best to say, I don't know, but you know what? I'm pretty sure I can find that out and I'll get back to you. So keep your word, get back to them. All right, last thing, tip number 8, get enough sleep. If you do a presentation when you're, nursing a hangover, dragging in because you stayed up too late, you didn't get enough sleep, whatever your reason is for only getting 2 hours of sleep, that is a bad thing. You want to always put the best you forward in front of your students. I mean, if they've paid to listen to you speak, you need to give them their money's worth. And I'll tell you what, there is only one time to make a good first impression, and that's going to be the first day of your presentation, or the first 5 minutes even of your presentation. Come in fully rested, full of energy, happy, excited, as if this is the best place on earth, the only place on earth that you want to be right now, not back in your bed sleeping, right? Okay, so get enough sleep. This is very, very, very important. All right, so those are all my tips. Let me review real quick. And I have my little cheat sheet right here that tells me all 8 of them again. All right. First of all, do your homework. That is so important, to know your material and know it well. Which leads you to tip number 2, anticipating questions. If you've done your homework, that's going to help you to anticipate weird random things about this subject that you probably wouldn't have thought of in the first place. Okay. So anticipate your questions, or questions that students might ask you, And that, like I said, gives you the opportunity to work them back into your presentation, and maybe avoid the question in the first place, right? All right, but it does add to your credibility more than anything else. So tip number 3, prepare your introductions. That first minute of your introduction is the minute where you're probably going to be the most nervous. If you're anything like me, you're that introvert, you think, oh my God, I can't believe I have to do this. That introduction, that first minute of you talking is going to help you relax. It really, really does. And it's going to be simple things like your name, maybe your background. This is what we're going to talk about today. Here's some housekeeping issues. Those are standard introduction topics. And then the next tip is prepare a question for the group. That's the last thing you do on your introduction. The question, as I say, it's going to be things like, what's your name? Where do you work? What kind of work do you do? What do you want to get out of this class or this lecture? Simple. Tip number 5, write down your entire presentation. Start by doing bullet points. Make sure they're in a good logical order. Fill in the details. And then tip number 6, practice. Practice saying these words over and over again so you feel really comfortable with it. And then people can see that you're comfortable as well. But remember, tip number 7, it is okay to say, I don't know. But remember, you always have to follow that with, I don't know, but hey, let me look it up and I'll get back to you. Or, I don't know, but here's my resource. You may want to check it out too, but I'll look it up as well and I'll get back to you. Let's talk about it at the end of the class. Whatever it is, it's okay to say, I don't know, as long as you follow it up with, let's find the answer. And then the very last tip I just mentioned is get enough sleep. Do not come dragging into your classroom half asleep or half awake or however you want to see it, where you can barely get the words out of your mouth. People are going to notice. You may forget things in that case if you're really tired. And you may do a really poor lecture. And that's probably your biggest fear, isn't it? Doing a crappy job? Well, you don't want to do that. So get enough sleep, darn it. Okay. Anyway, I would say out of all this, being prepared is probably the most important thing. This is the thing that gets me through every one of my classes that I've ever done, is just knowing my material really well and anticipating those questions, learning as much about the subject as I can, practicing, get comfortable with it, and of course I write it all down. I do all these things. I can tell you this over and over again. I know this list really well because I still do this. And as I say, I was a corporate trainer for about 35 years. And that 5 minutes of fear before you walk into the classroom, I don't know. I still feel it, but I do know that when I walk in, I have my introduction all ready to go. And that's what's going to help me relax. So thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this presentation. And I sure hope it puts you closer to doing your own presentations and feeling a lot more comfortable with it. If you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, always feel free to email me, jan@lifeafter18.com. See, it's right there, lifeafter18.com. And I will always respond, usually within 24 to 48 hours. So that's it for now. We'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.